Hi, Grace Fellowship families, moms and dads. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're excited to get to talk to some moms from our church, and we hope that this will be encouraging and helpful. We're all just going through some crazy times. It's different, it's weird, we don't know what we're doing, so we thought hopefully we could share some of our challenges, some of our wins, and maybe we could help each other get better at this. So, first of all, let me say to you and to you, Happy Mother's Day. It's coming in just a few days. Dads, if you didn't know, get ready. Mother's Day is coming. I know that what you really, really want is probably like a babysitter and a hair appointment, but we can't get to either of those right now. So this will have to do instead. So I'd love for you all to meet the moms we have here with us. So if you don't mind, we'll just go around the circle and share your name, your kids, maybe kind of what it's like at your house these days. So do you mind going first, Rachel?
Sure. So my name is Rachel Ross, and I have 3 kids. Their ages are 3, 5, and 7, so they're young. I currently work 3 days a week, and then my husband's a teacher, so he's also teaching at home. I feel sorry for him because I get to leave the home. My life hasn't changed too much, but he has to take care of a lot of things, so that's been a little challenging for him because he still gives his all for teaching, but then I'm like, we have kids too, so trying to balance that is difficult at times.
Yeah, for sure.
Hello, my name is Marta Thony. I also have 3 kids, similar ages, 7, 5, and 2. I am a non-essential worker. I am a massage therapist, licensed massage therapist, but I am not working at the moment, so I'm doing homeschooling. I am with the kids. I'm kind of like your husband, and things are a little crazy at home. My husband is working outside of the home, and so it's all me.
I'm Diane Taylor. I'm a single mom of 4 kids, ages 18 to 29. I'm still working. I'm an essential worker, so work schedule hasn't changed or anything, so that part's pretty similar. But my youngest is graduating from high school. My daughter-in-law just graduated from college, and my oldest got engaged and is going to get married in COVID time frame, and we're just trying to navigate that. That's different.
I'm Rachel Brown. I'm a single mom of a single child named Evan. He's 8 years old. I am a nurse, so I'm still working during the week, mostly from home, except for Thursday afternoons. I go see patients in clinic, and then helping Evan with school during the day.
I'm Angie Smith, and I have a 5, 10, and 12-year-old. I own a children's dance school, so we've had to shut that down, so I'm trying to do that from home, and my husband's a first responder, so his schedule hasn't changed, so we are also trying to homeschool and run businesses and just carry on a normal, crazy schedule with him at work.
Hi, I'm Amy Bartos, and I'm married. My husband is working, just like normal, but I am home with my 3 children, 13, 11, and 8. They just had birthdays, so give me a second. Anyway, it has been an adventure just learning to add in 2 more kids to my already full homeschool schedule. My oldest has already been homeschooled for 7 years, and you would think that I would have it down by now, but every year changes. And so with this, adding the online school provided me with a lot of learning to do with the technology and the turning papers in online. So it's been very interesting with the IT challenges. My oldest also has some special needs where learning is an issue. So that has also it's kind of taken a little bit of a hit because she's had all the attention, and now we have to spread out that attention a little bit. So
I think it's good to call out the homeschooling and distance learning are 2 different things. I think a lot of moms out there are facing like, now I'm a homeschool mom. No, you're trying to teach your kids while you're at home. Like, it's different, and teachers are heartbroken because they can't be with the kids, and then it's falling on you. So a lot of things are just challenging right now. So, which brings us to, we've got some questions. So they posted something on Facebook this morning, some parents put some questions in, and we might get some more live ones here. But let's start with this first one, which kind of says, parenting is hard right now. It just is, mostly because we're all wearing lots of different hats. Lots of moms are wearing different hats. So how are you balancing some of those different hats? We'll start with Rachel Brown. How are you balancing all those different hats?
I have all the hats that I had before coronavirus, but there's a few that stand out. With Evan being an only child, I've been really strict with the isolation, so he's only been with me or his dad since March 13th. And as a single child, I'm his playmate and his friend and his companion. One of his love languages, I think, is quality time or spending time together. So that's exhausting. But we're doing some things that we haven't done before. We're playing badminton out in the driveway a lot. And we're making slime, and nothing extravagant, but I'm trying to make memories that he'll remember, because he's going to remember this. I think all the kids are going to remember the time that they had to stay home because of the virus. So I'm just trying to do things, and I listen to worship music when I do it, so that if I'm getting bored, I can take my mind off of it. And then one of the hats of teacher, I never would have signed up for this, and I don't want to call myself a teacher. His school is providing so much instruction and online help and resources. I'm the motivator, the taskmaster, the encourager, the herder. He literally, and then sitting next to him sometimes at the table and trying to deal with my work schedule that changes daily. It's really overwhelming. Some of the positives of sitting next to him while he's learning is that I get to see what he loves. That he loves to do art first thing in the morning on Mondays, and see what's easy for him and see what's hard for him and why. He cried when he found out he needed to do cursive in 3rd grade. Cursive is hard because he doesn't get it right the first time. And so I'm learning what makes him tick, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if he was in the classroom. The negative is the time management, that I can't do both work and school at the same time. He's 8, so I can't leave him to himself. But Diane likes to remind me that God gives us our daily bread, that I might not know what his assignments are tomorrow, but I know that my God is faithful to meet my needs today, which goes into the last thing, which I think is the most exciting, is that I'm a Jesus follower. That's my hat, my biggest hat, I think. And that Evan used to see me come home from work, and we sit at the table and we do our high-low. And I'm a Jesus follower when we pray at night, and on Sundays for church, and Tuesdays for Grace Group. But I'm going to get emotional. Oh my gosh. Yesterday sucked, okay? It sucked. Lots of tears and crying, reaching out to friends and praying. And I think the coolest thing is that Evan is seeing me be a Jesus follower live in real time. And so he sees me screw up, but he sees me minute by minute turn back to Jesus. We sat in the hallway in the dark yesterday afternoon, and I was like, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry. I came at you with my words. And, when you feel overwhelmed, when you have so many assignments and I'm telling you what to do, he's like, yeah. I'm like, I feel overwhelmed right now like that with all the emails and the phone calls and trying to help you. So I'm going to pray that God helps me feel calm inside my heart, and that I'm going to trust that he's going to guide me through the rest of our day. And he was like, okay. So I just think that, I think that's the biggest thing, is that he's going to have a Jesus story, and it's going to be, I saw God heal my mom's anger and heal my mom's depression.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in the day-to-day. So this is hard.
I love that, though. Like, you got to model for him what it looks like to confess and get forgiveness and move on and get a clean slate, which is what Jesus gives to us.
Yes.
And you got to share that with him.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a positive memory from COVID that he's going to remember.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Amazing. While you were talking, we got a question, which I think you and Diane maybe could both speak into briefly, because we have lots of other great questions. But other than just reassuring my daughter how much she's loved, how do I help a 7-year-old who's dealing with a divorce? if either one of you wants to speak into that.
Love the other parent as best as you can, and continue to just reassure them that it's not them, and be as kind to the other parent as you can be, because that other parent is half them. And so in the midst, they don't understand, just as kind as you can to the other parent. And I think always showing our own weaknesses. That was a perfect example. Our weaknesses are where Jesus shines best. And so being able to say, like, this isn't God's plan. This wasn't what God wanted. I'm sorry, because we all have a role. Being sorry and being real.
I think that's great. Do you want to add something?
I also want to say that school at mom's house doesn't look like school at dad's house, and trying to give the other parent the benefit of the doubt that this isn't what they signed up for either, and that they're trying. And then I pray with Evan at the end of the night, and we pray for his dad.
Yeah.
And that helps just kind of refocus that we're trusting that other parent with. We're trusting God with the other
That's
parent.
probably true, too, that, like, even though school's not the same, lots of things are not the same. The rules
Right.
are not the same. Dinner's
Right.
not the same. Bedtime's not the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, praying for and loving the other parent. That's great. Oh, so good. I just want to add one more thing to what you said earlier. Like, mistakes are how we grow. And I think when we make mistakes, our kids can see that, and they can grow from our own mistakes, and we get to grow from those too. And then another thing that I think is super important to say in this moment is not to let your mom guilt win. If you didn't have a good day, or you did snap, or you didn't get the schoolwork done, or whatever it was, like, you get a clean slate tomorrow too. And you get a clean slate tomorrow too. Mom guilt doesn't get to win at the end of the day. So confess it, move on. So, all right, next question. How do you find time for yourself when everyone is at home? Or Tiffany, would you like to speak into this one?
Sure. So with 3 little ones, and mine are younger, it's interesting. So my biggest me time is during nap time. With my 7-year-old, he's not really into naps, but it's still quiet time, because that's still a main focus of mine, is to consider me in that moment. And that's from 12 to 2:30 in my house. So that kind of leads me to having somewhat of a schedule. It has to happen. If you aren't on a kids just do better with routine. They can
So do
expect
grown-ups,
it.
but
Yeah, us too. But kids, they do really well with routine, and so they're already going to be tired if they already get that nap every day. So it may be something you have to work into, but for the older ones, if they're not into sleeping during that time, read a book. You can play the piano with headphones. Teach yourself a new language, whatever. And I don't want them on the same level. And so I'm like, upstairs in your room, or, just so that I can have that freedom to do something, polish my nails, take a nap myself, or clean, or whatever it is. I try not to work during my downtime, but it's so important to have self-care.
you can't pour from an empty cup, so you have
Can't.
to fill back up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anybody else want to add? How do you get time alone? Anybody? Amy?
I will. So our school day we say it goes from 9 to 2. Now, sometimes we get done earlier. Sometimes it takes us longer, all depending on what projects are to be done. But at 2 o'clock, I allow them to have 1 hour of iPad time. And I've had to really adjust that during this time, because their iPad time is not only like it was our TV time when we were kids, when we got home from school and watched a half hour of TV. That's kind of what their new time is. And so I've had to adjust that also, because that's also their play date time. They don't get together with friends, so that's also their time to connect through FaceTime or Zoom or whatever so that they can, and I think that's really important, that they are able to connect. So I've had to really adjust my negative thoughts about technology. So that's been hard. But during that hour from 2 to 3 o'clock, they are doing their thing. They're talking to their friends. They're, usually they're together in the same room playing the same game with each other, which is funny, and so during that time, I will get on my treadmill and I will listen to devotionals. I will listen to the Bible. I will sometimes watch a show, catch up on the news. Not often, but but that's when I just really, I'll do a 10-minute yoga, just something to get myself active and doing something that I really love that brings life to me.
Yeah, I was listening to a counselor on Facebook the other day, and she was just talking about how it's okay to have conversations with your kids about needing alone time, because it's not just a need, it's a human need. We all need alone time, just like they like to play Legos alone or do whatever their thing is by themselves. We need alone time. So it's okay to have that developmentally appropriate conversation with your kids and say, it's a human need that I need alone time. It's not that I don't want to be with you. I need alone time. And so I think it's okay to have that conversation with your kids and say those kind of things to them in an age-appropriate way, but not that I don't want to be with you. I just need to be alone right now so that you can recharge and refuel and that kind of stuff. So I think that's good to find the things that refuel you so that you can pour back into them. Next question actually goes back to you, Amy. So how do you deal with meltdowns?
Meltdowns. Wow. So I feel like I've had quite some practice with meltdowns lately. So, we're all doing things that we don't really want to do a lot right now. And for my youngest, it's very challenging to do something that she doesn't want to do. And she is very much, no, I'm not going to do it. And she gets quite angry, like to the point where it's upsetting to the whole family. So what I have to do, and what I've really tried to do, I'm not always perfect at it, but I really try to not match her intensity. And I really try to take a step back and wait. And then it does seem that when I'm not getting aggravated myself, then it builds up and then it calms down. And when she's at a point where it's calming down, I can say, when you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen. And then she'll say what she's mad, and sometimes she still says it angrily. I wanted to sit there, or, whatever the thing is. And I'll say, okay, so you're saying you wanted to sit in that spot. And, I'll rephrase what she's saying to me so she knows I'm hearing her and I'm listening to her. And that just kind of brings everything down. Now, my goal is to not give in because she has behaved not well, right? So that's where it gets tricky because she has not behaved well. Sometimes she said things that are disrespectful. And so I'll remind her that, it helps to lay out the rules first so she knows that when this happens, I can say to her, that was disrespectful. And since you were disrespectful, you don't get to choose the movie or you don't get to sit in the seat. So and we just try and follow through those consequences. Now, often it's still upsetting and she ends up in her room upset, but I still feel like knowing the rules and then following through with those rules, depending on what your rules are in your house, but I feel like disrespect is across the board, then you can really just kind of say, hey, these are the rules, this is what you did, this is why. You can make the choice next time to have the privilege or to not, but you're making the choice. And it's really hard for her to accept that responsibility, and that's what we're
That's what you're working on. Have any of you had kids who maybe were past the meltdown stage regress? Sometimes trauma, and let's all just say COVID is trauma, can cause regression. Maybe it goes to meltdowns. Maybe it goes to talking back, or OCD behaviors, or all kinds of things that trauma can cause. And so I think, like you said, establishing the rules, patience, and the energy you bring to it. What you said was so good. When I go in, I can escalate or de-escalate whatever that emotion or energy was in that moment. And so you have to figure out, moms, how do you calm yourself and make sure that you're calm before you go in. You could bring it up or you could bring it back down. And then just something I learned a long time ago about little kids' brains. You know, we've got the thinking part of our brain and the emotional part of our brain. And when they're in the middle of that meltdown and that trauma, they're way back here in the emotions. And they cannot come back and make a rational decision. And so sometimes giving them a choice or giving them a voice brings their brain back to that front decision-making part. And so, like, you can't sit in that chair, but would you like to sit here or here? Like, okay, I have to make a choice, makes their brain go back to, okay, rational, not so emotional. So I don't know if that will help you, if that's a good tip for moms, but like, just remember, when they're in that, they cannot make a rational decision. So giving them that choice and that voice helps go back. So tip I learned when I was a teacher a long time ago. Okay, let's see. Let's go to Rachel and talk about maybe, we had a question this morning, someone submitted about discipline. How do we discipline in a godly way?
Sure. So I think a lot of what Amy said, and really what you said too, talking about choices and consequences, I think is so important with our kids. You know, my kids will be doing something and I'm like, you have the choice to continue that, but if you do, this is what's going to happen. And if you stop that, this is what's going to happen. And I always think it's important to frame it in a positive way, so hopefully they choose that instead of in a negative way. But I also think when we discipline, we have to know their love language too, and like really study. I love what you said, Rachel, about studying your kid. Like, you really need to study them and know what they'll respond to. And I think you guys know, like, behavior modification doesn't really work. Like, we shouldn't really have to be dictators to them because that's not going to change their heart. Really focusing on their heart, like, why are you doing that? Like, you said this really mean thing about your sister. Why? Like, God sees them as a beautiful creation. Are you saying what God makes is junk? So I think focusing on the heart, and there'll be times when it is out of control in our house. I'm screaming, the kids are screaming, and I'm like, we just need to stop and pray for all of us. Like, we just need to start over. And I think there's grace in that. Like, our kids love us. And when we mess up, they give us grace just like God gives us grace. So I think that's really cool to see that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, did I answer the question?
Yeah, and you led right into a resource I wanted to share. So thank you. Have any of you read Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp? So good. Because what you said is so right. We don't want to just change behavior. We want to shape their heart. That's what God's after, is their heart, not their behavior. Did you want to? Yeah.
Well, it takes patience
Yes,
too. And that's why
yes.
we need like self-care. Because if we don't have it in us, it's hard to shepherd a kid's heart.
For
It's
sure.
so hard. And if you're not sleeping, not taking care of yourself, it's difficult to stop and be able to do that for our kids.
Yeah. So just, there you go. Shepherding a Child's Heart, Ted Tripp. I think that they're going to put the link in the comments if people want to order it online. So thank you. Great one. All right. We got to keep moving. So next one. Angie, how do you keep your kids motivated, on task, when there's no organized sports, there's no school, there's no dance class to go to? We're just at home all the time.
Yeah, we are all the time, just at home. We are a very busy family, so it was quite an adjustment when the brakes were put on and it was like a hard reset, which there's parts of that we are really enjoying. But there is a lot of downtime and a lot of times sitting at a computer, a lot of time where it's just us. It's the only people in the house. So there's tons of resources. Thank goodness we live in a time period where there is resources like Zoom, where we can do some online classes. So I think, my Facebook answer is do family game night. And we did a couple times.
What's your real answer?
My real answer is where we live right now. Oh, yeah. No, I think that probably structuring the day is very helpful. That way in the evening, we have time that's set aside for, okay, we were structured all day, so now we can kind of cut loose. And so I think the Zoom classes are really, I know we as a family, we're reading books together. So, silly books that are actually really good, like the Nevermore series or Harry Potter, like we've been reading that as a group. And so it's like sneaky education, being sneaky about it. But it's, just I mean, it is tough. It's hard. They're used to, but I think that probably there's been, in our house, a lot of growth in that there's not busyness. There's been a lot of growth in us. So, I mean, I guess just taking advantage of the time to reset and know that it's okay. It's okay that we don't have an activity today. That's actually okay.
Yeah. I think we all keep saying this, but the warm weather's going to help.
Yes.
When we can all go
Yes.
outside and, it'll be great. But again, back to the mom guilt. Don't beat yourself up if you didn't get to do the structured activity or the whole schedule fell apart or whatever it is. Give yourself grace. And again, mistakes are how we grow. So we're going to make them and we're going to keep going. Also, I think it's important to say at this point that you're not going to be the same as their teacher. You're not going to be able to do the thing as well as the coach did or whoever that other person was that they have usually gone to for that class or whatever it is. And that's okay. And that's okay. Period. Like, it's okay. So we have to be okay. Let's do one more question, and then we'll try to wrap this up. Diane, since you have the oldest kids here among us, and I think some folks at home want to know also, like, how do we help our kids, especially when we're online all the time, swim upstream? Culture says go this way. Culture says do this with social media. Culture says do this with the way we live. How do we fight that?
That's a great question for all the time. And then now we put 24/7 light on that. I think that we have to be really, really wise and not naive about the dangers that are out there. And if you have a middle schooler or a high schooler, they're exposed to, an older elementary, they're exposed to more than you probably think that they are, no matter how much you try to protect them. I was that naive parent too. We all want to believe that we have their innocence longer than they do. So just be really, really wise. Don't have as much as you can. Keep the technology in the middle of the room. Keep them in the middle of the room, because if they've got a cell phone, they take that technology and everything you can do with it into private areas. So have a phone drop somewhere safe, and allow that technology that they have to have. They are doing school on it. That is their social with their friends. That they have to be on technology, and a lot of it's very good. So, but have it just in a place that's safe. And I was just sharing, with high school ministries, we have group on Zoom, or in middle schools doing that too, and it's kind of fun. We're getting to see each other, see the kids' lives and stuff like that. There's a new way of being able to see each other's lives differently. So, but just being really, really aware of what is out there and being cautious. And if you think that you can protect yourself, they're so much smarter than we are. I remember a conversation with Jonathan years ago when I tried to talk about all the safety things, and he just looked at me and he said, "Mom, no offense, but I can get around whatever technology, whatever you would put on my phone, computer, or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." So we got to go to the heart. Got to go to the heart. And the heart is, building into the character, who do you want to be? And, just the same way as if we were hanging out, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, Keithism, right? So we, at the same way, what are you choosing to do with your social media and stuff like that? And where do you want to be? So encouraging them just that everything that they're doing does have an effect, that just because they're in in their own home and stuff, their choices are out there, and really trying to have those conversations about the heart. And the heart is where, we can't protect the rest.
Which is why it's okay to say no when they're 12 and 14 and 17 and 19 if they live in your house. You have to have those conversations even then about their heart. So, yeah. Since you mentioned it, Right Click is a great book about how to, it's kind of a double play on words there, the right click. We want them to click on the right things. We'll link that one in the comments too so people can check it out. It's a great one. I have a couple more which we'll put in later, but we got to wrap up. So thank you, ladies, so much. I just want to say one final thing. I'm not a licensed counselor or anything like that, but if your kids or your kids or you need help, get help. It's okay. If you're noticing behaviors that are self-harm or anything like that, like these kind of traumatic things can cause sometimes more than we can handle. So it's okay to get help for yourself or for your kids if you need it. But the thing is, you have the skills to be the best mom. Your children were given to you by God because he thought you were the best mom for them, and you were the best mom for them. So you have the skills, and sometimes stress can cover up our skills. So like you've all mentioned, self-care and making sure that you're okay so that you can give the best to your kids, which it just made me think of the story that Jesus told, or actually didn't tell, he witnessed when all the people were coming to the temple to give their offerings. And the rich people were giving so much money. And then the lady came in with very little, but she gave all that she had. And so God was most pleased with her offering than theirs. So I think about that when it comes to parenting. God doesn't want you to give above and beyond what you can. He wants you to give what you have. And what you have is your best. And that's what God will be honored by, and that's the best offering you can give to him and to your kids. So don't stress out. Don't give yourself a hard time. Don't give yourself a hard time, Grace, and let's just make sure that we keep pointing them to Jesus, because that's the most important part. So if you need help with any other resources or anything like that, go to gracefellowship.cc/family resources or /COVID-19. There's a family resources tab there. There's a video there you can show to little kids to talk about how to talk about COVID-19. There's things you can do, really great, fun, silly, safe YouTube channels your big kids can watch, stuff like that. Some articles we've put there to help. So we really want to just be a resource and a help. So I hope this was helpful for you guys and hopefully for you guys. So why don't we pray together and then we'll wrap this up, okay? Thank you, God, so much just for the chance in times of separation to come together. Thank you that via technology we can support and encourage each other. Thank you for these 6 moms that came here today, God. I pray for them especially in this moment, that you will give them the courage and the grace that they need to keep going and pointing their kids to you. God, for those moms that are watching, I pray that this Mother's Day can be an encouragement to them, even in this crazy time, that you will get the glory out of it. That at the end, our kids will look back and say, Jesus showed up and my mom and dad kept showing up, even though it was hard in the middle of coronavirus. We love you, Jesus. We're thankful for who you are and what you've done for us. In your name I pray. Amen. Thank you, guys. Thanks.